She didn't speak much, wore the same faded blue coveralls every day, and pushed her cleaning cart through the Pentagon's most classified research facility with the precision of someone who had done this for years. The security cameras recorded Helen Reyes leaving the building at 6:15 a.m., just like every morning for the past 6 months. What they couldn't record was the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd finally completed a mission that had taken 15 years to finish properly. Dr. Marcus Webb's girlfriend visited his grave every Sunday morning, bringing fresh flowers and updates about the defensive technology program that now bore his name in official documentation. She never noticed that sometimes an elderly woman in a maintenance uniform stood at a respectful distance among the headstones, making sure she remained safe from the kind of people who killed researchers for asking inconvenient questions. Some promises were worth keeping regardless of personal cost. Some truths were worth dying for, even if it meant living as a ghost. And some janitors cleaned up more than floors. They cleaned up history itself, one dangerous secret at a time. Helen Reyes had broken her oath of silence after 12 years of retirement, but she'd kept the more important oath. She'd sworn as a young soldier to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, no matter what it cost her personally. The best missions she'd learned through decades of service were the ones no one ever heard about publicly. The most important warriors were often the ones who did their jobs and disappeared back into invisibility, leaving only clean floors and safer worlds behind them. But this story has one final chapter, one that was never supposed to be told to anyone outside the intelligence community. The final truth. 1 year after the Stormlight revelations, a black sedan with government plates pulled up to Helen's new workplace. 3 men in expensive suits stepped out, flashing credentials that made seasoned security officers step aside without asking questions. They found Helen in the supply closet, organizing cleaning chemicals with the same methodical precision she brought to everything else. She didn't look up when they entered, didn't stop her careful inventory work. "Agent Reyes," the lead man said quietly, or should we say, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, former commander of Black Viper Unit. Helen finally looked up, unsurprised. She'd been expecting this conversation for months. That person died in Syria 15 years ago. Twice, if you're keeping accurate records. "No," he replied, opening a thick manila folder. That person went underground and has been conducting unauthorized operations that resulted in multiple classified programs being exposed to public scrutiny. Helen stood slowly, and for the first time since taking this position, she carried herself like the officer she had once been. "What do you want from me?" "We want to offer you a choice that's actually a choice this time. Come back officially. Accept the decorations you were recommended for 15 years ago. Take command of a new unit. Help us rebuild what Black Viper was supposed to be before politics corrupted the mission." Sarah considered the offer carefully, looking around the supply closet where she'd found a different kind of purpose. "And the alternative? You disappear again. Permanently this time. New identity, new life, somewhere far from government facilities. But you stop conducting operations. You stop influencing security matters. You become truly invisible." She looked at the cleaning supplies, at the maintenance schedules, at the small space where she'd discovered that service came in many different forms. "There's a third option you haven't considered." The men waited for her response. "I stay exactly where I am. I keep cleaning floors and maintaining equipment, and if anyone has a problem with that arrangement, they're welcome to try stopping me." It wasn't a threat. It was a simple statement of fact from someone who had survived when entire units died, who had influenced operations from complete invisibility, who had become more powerful as a ghost than she'd ever been as an acknowledged officer. The lead investigator studied her for a long moment, then closed his folder. Like this conversation never happened. These agents were never here. As they turned to leave, Helen called out quietly, tell me one thing. Did someone order you to find me? Or did someone order you to stop me from continuing my work?" The man paused at the door without turning around. "Both," he said. Guess which directive we're choosing to follow. After they left, Helen returned to organizing supplies. But now she understood something she hadn't recognized before. She wasn't just a ghost haunting government facilities, cleaning floors, and watching over researchers. She had become something much more dangerous. A weapon that multiple factions wanted to control, but none of them could actually command. What Helen never learned, what the classified files would never reveal, was that Operation Stormlight had been terminated not because of mission failure, but because of mission success. Her unit had discovered evidence of war crimes that went far beyond chemical weapons development, human experimentation, illegal weapons testing, and civilian casualties that had been systematically covered up for decades. The 12 soldiers who died hadn't been eliminated by enemy action. They had been sacrificed to protect a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government, involving officials who were still in positions of power today. Helen had survived, not through luck, but because she'd been positioned too far from the crash site to witness what her teammates had seen in those final moments. The tattoo she didn't have, the memories she couldn't access, the evidence she couldn't provide. These weren't gaps in her knowledge. They were proof that she had been deliberately kept away from information that would have made her elimination necessary. And now, by training those recruits, by exposing Catherine's operations, by refusing to disappear quietly, Helen had become the most dangerous person in America, not because of her skills with weapons or tactics, but because of what she represented. Proof that the heroes were real, that the system had betrayed them, and that some people couldn't be silenced, regardless of consequences. The men in suits weren't there to recruit her or stop her from training soldiers. They were there to assess whether she had finally figured out why her entire unit had really died. They had decided she remained ignorant of the full truth. They were wrong. So I leave you with one final question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. In a world where truth can get you killed, where heroes are erased to protect the guilty, where the most dangerous person in any room might be the one quietly cleaning floors in the corner, who do you trust? The government that claims to protect you while classifying its crimes? The military that sends soldiers to die for secrets that benefit only politicians? Or the ghost in coveralls, maintaining equipment and preparing for wars that most people don't even know are being fought? Helen Reyes made her choice. She chose to keep cleaning floors, keep training the next generation, keep fighting a war that officially doesn't exist. Because sometimes the most important battles are fought by people who refuse to be acknowledged, who work in shadows, who understand that real heroism means doing what's right, regardless of recognition or reward. Stories from veterans exist to honor these invisible warriors, the ones who serve without glory, who sacrifice without praise, who fight battles that history will never record. If this story opened your eyes to the heroes hiding in plain sight around you, if it made you think about the people working quietly in the background while others take credit, then it has served its purpose. Hit that subscribe button if you believe these stories need to be told. Share this video if you think someone you know needs to understand that real strength often comes without uniform or recognition. And remember, the next time you see someone working quietly in the background, someone maintaining equipment that others depend on, Someone preparing for challenges they hope will never come. Ask yourself what they might know that you don't. Black Viper never shouted, but their silence is still protecting people today. And if you listen carefully to that silence, you might hear the warning they died trying to deliver. Because some secrets are worth keeping, some truths are worth revealing, and some janitors are cleaning up more than you could ever imagine. Thank you for watching Stories from Veterans. Until next time, remember that heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear coveralls and push mop buckets at 4 a.m., silently making sure the rest of us are safe. And if you ever find yourself working alongside someone who seems overqualified for their job, someone who knows more than they should, someone who moves with precision that comes from training they never mention, treat them with the respect they've earned, even if you never learn what they did to earn it. The best warriors, after all, are the ones you never see coming. Reyes entering the building at 4:47 a.m., just like every morning for the past 8 years. What they couldn't record was the way she counted steps, memorized exit routes, and cataloged every face that passed through those sterile corridors. At 62, Helen moved through the halls like a shadow with purpose. Scientists barely glanced at her weathered hands as she cleaned around their workstations. Security guards nodded politely but never really saw the woman behind the uniform. Administration staff treated her like furniture, necessary but unremarkable. If they had looked closer, they might have noticed things that didn't fit. The way she cleaned windows followed them. Systematic pattern of someone checking for surveillance equipment. Her cart positioning always left multiple escape routes clear. Her eyes moved constantly while she worked, scanning, assessing, calculating threats that existed only in memories of another life. But no one looked closer. After 8 years, Helen Reyes had perfected the art of being invisible until Tuesday morning when she found Dr. Marcus Webb dead in Laboratory 7. The body in Laboratory 7. It was 5:23 a.m. when Helen pushed her cart past the biometrics lab toward the classified research section. She had level 3 clearance, enough to mop floors and empty waste bins, not enough to ask questions about what happened behind those heavy steel doors. Laboratory 7's door was ajar. Protocol demanded all lab doors remain sealed during off hours. Helen paused, her grip tightening on the cart handle. In another life, an open door in a restricted area would have triggered immediate tactical assessment, ambush potential, extraction routes, threat identification. But that life was officially over. Helen Reyes, the Special Operations Officer, had died 12 years ago in a helicopter crash over Syria. Helen Reyes, the janitor, simply cleaned what needed cleaning. She knocked gently. Maintenance, she called in the soft, slightly accented voice she'd cultivated for this identity. No response. The door swung open under her touch. Dr. Marcus Webb sat slumped over his workstation, 28 years old, brilliant and completely still. No obvious wounds, no signs of struggle. His coffee was still warm. Helen's buried instincts activated automatically. She scanned the room in 30 seconds. Computer running. Documents scattered but not searched. No defensive wounds on the victim. Pupils dilated. Slight blue discoloration around the lips. Poison. Professional execution. Her hand moved toward the emergency call button, then froze. Something on Dr. Webb's computer screen made her blood turn cold. A document with a familiar letterhead. Operation Stormlight. Classified. Stormlight had been buried for 15 years. Everyone who knew about Stormlight was supposed to be dead. Everyone except her. Helen stepped back from the body, her heart pounding as memories she'd spent years suppressing came flooding back. Ghosts of Operation Stormlight. Lieutenant Colonel Helen Reyes, crouched behind rubble in a bombed-out Syrian medical facility, radio static crackling in her earpiece. Operation Stormlight had gone wrong, and her 12-person team was pinned down. "Control, this is Viper 1, she whispered. "Package secured, requesting immediate extraction. Multiple hostiles converging. Static. Then an unfamiliar voice. Viper 1, mission. Parameters changed. Package no longer priority. Repeat, Control. Eliminate the package." No witnesses. No survivors. Helen looked at the terrified Syrian doctor they'd been sent to rescue. A man whose only crime was treating wounded civilians. Her team awaited orders. "No, negative, Control. Mission remains extraction." "That's a direct order, Colonel." Helen switched off her radio. "Pack up," she told her team. "We're all going home." That decision saved Dr. Khalil's life. It also sealed everyone's fate in her unit. Signs of the past. Helen forced herself back to the present. Dr. Webb was still dead. The computer still displaying files that shouldn't exist. She moved quickly, muscle memory taking over. Tissue to wipe fingerprints from the door frame. Phone to photograph the screen. And document layout before evidence disappeared. Mental inventory of everyone with access to this floor. The poison would be untraceable by morning. The computer would be scrubbed clean. Dr. Webb would become another tragic young researcher. Weak heart, stress-induced cardiac event. But Helen recognized the clinical precision, the staging, the elimination of someone who'd accessed forbidden information. This was Stormlight Cleanup Protocol. Someone from her old unit was alive. Someone with access to classified archives and resources to eliminate threats. Someone who didn't know Helen Reyes still breathed. She finished photographing evidence, adjusted her cart, and walked calmly to the security station. "Excuse me," she said to the guard, voice trembling with perfect elderly concern. "Something's wrong in Laboratory 7. The young doctor, he's not moving." By 6:15 a.m., Laboratory 7 swarmed with personnel, medical examiner, facility security, Defense Department investigators. Helen watched from her supply closet, officially dismissed but lingering to clean nearby areas. She observed everything. Arrival order, who took charge, who showed genuine surprise versus performed reactions. Old skills, deeply embedded. Detective Sarah Mills led the investigation. Helen had cleaned around her office for 3 years, knew she was thorough but bureaucratic. Mills would follow procedure, file reports, accept obvious conclusions. "Preliminary assessment suggests cardiac event," Mills announced. Dr. Webb worked 18-hour days on materials research. "No signs of foul play." Dr. Webb's computer vanished within 20 minutes. Chain of custody logged. Official, clean. The Stormlight files were already gone. But Helen learned something crucial during observation. The first person on scene wasn't medical or security. It was Deputy Director Catherine Marshall from Strategic Defense Initiatives, a woman who shouldn't have known about a minor research lab. Death, unless monitoring the situation. Helen knew that name. Catherine Marshall had been Captain Kathy Morrison, Stormlight Communications Specialist, officially killed in the same helicopter crash that supposedly claimed Helen's life. The pieces fell into place. The crash was real, but not everyone died. Someone survived and built a new identity inside the system. Someone with access to classified archives and power to eliminate threats. Someone who just killed Dr. Webb for accessing Stormlight files. Helen finished her shift at 2 p.m., rode the bus to her Arlington apartment, fed her cat, and sat at the kitchen table with tea. Before her lay photographs taken that morning, printed on her ancient inkjet. Dr. Webb's peaceful face, the computer screen showing classified files, timestamps proving he worked through the night 12 years ago, offered a new identity and quiet life. She'd made a promise. No more operations, no more missions, no more playing God with lives. She would clean floors and empty bins, let others carry national security's weight. She'd kept that promise through 8 years of routine, watching younger agents pass her invisible form, never knowing they shared workspace with a legend they thought dead. But Dr. Webb was 28, with a girlfriend who called every night at 7. Helen had listened to him laugh on those calls while cleaning outside his lab. He worked on defensive materials, body armor to save soldiers' lives. Someone killed him to protect secrets that should have died with Operation Stormlight. Helen opened her phone, scrolled to a number untouched for 12 years. It rang twice. "I thought you were dead," Colonel James Rodriguez answered. "Officially I am," Helen replied, but someone made it personal again. "Helen, whatever you're thinking, a researcher was murdered this morning, covering up Stormlight files. Catherine Marshall is alive, operating under new identity inside defense. She has archive access and elimination protocols. Silence. Then, how certain? Certain enough to break my silence oath. You've been out 12 years. You're 62. Even if you're right about Marshall, I'm not requesting backup," Helen interrupted. "I'm providing warning. Tomorrow, Deputy Director Catherine Marshall will have an accident. Natural causes. Stress-related. Very sad. Don't do this. Come in officially." Helen studied the photographs. Dr. Webb's young face stared back. "Some jobs require unofficial solutions. You taught me that." She ended the call, removed the battery. Tomorrow, the invisible janitor would stop being invisible. Helen spent evening preparing for what might be her final mission. 12 years of domestic routine melted away as buried skills resurfaced. From beneath bedroom floorboards, she retrieved items that officially didn't exist. Ceramic knife, invisible to metal detectors, sophisticated lock-picking kit disguised as cleaning supplies, device for cloning security keycards through contact. These tools remained, not because she'd planned to use them, but because a lifetime of operations taught her retirement was a luxury warriors rarely enjoyed. Target analysis was thorough. Catherine Marshall lived in secure Georgetown apartment, drove government sedan with GPS tracking, maintained predictable schedule. Former Stormlight operatives trained in counter-surveillance, but became creatures of habit when feeling safe. Catherine's weakness would be confidence. She'd successfully buried her past, eliminated threats for over a decade. She wouldn't expect attack from someone supposed to be dead. Helen studied building blueprints, accessed through maintenance databases she technically shouldn't access. She memorized Catherine's routine from security, logs she definitely shouldn't see. By midnight, 3 infiltration plans and 5 extraction routes were mapped. At 2 a.m., final preparations. Letter to her landlord apologizing for inconvenience. Next month's rent on the counter. Another letter requesting animal shelter, care for her cat. If this went wrong, Helen Reyes would disappear permanently. At 3 a.m., she left her apartment carrying only a small backpack and the weight of a promise about to be broken. The invisible janitor was hunting. The confrontation. Catherine Marshall's Georgetown apartment building represented everything. Helen had walked away from 12 years ago. Marble lobby, concierge service, security cameras at every angle, residents who could afford to ignore the world's problems. Helen approached, as she always did, through the service entrance. Her cleaning company, uniform and confident demeanor, got her past the first checkpoint. The cloned keycard from a genuine maintenance worker handled the rest. She found Catherine's apartment on the 7th floor, corner unit with panic room access and 3 separate exits. Professional paranoia never completely faded. Helen picked the lock in 43 seconds. Muscle memory making the complex mechanism yield like putty. Inside, the apartment screamed government, salary, and careful taste. Expensive, but not flashy. Comfortable, but not memorable. Catherine sat at her home office desk, back to the door, reviewing files on a secured laptop. Even at home, she worked. Some habits died hard. "Hello, Kathy," Helen said quietly. Catherine spun around, hand moving instinctively toward a drawer that Helen knew contained a pistol. She froze when she saw the face. "Jesus Christ," Catherine whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." "So are you," Helen replied, stepping into the room, but staying near the exit. Yet here we are. Catherine's mind was racing. Helen could see it in her eyes, calculating angles, assessing threats, wondering how much Helen knew. The same tactical thinking that had kept them both alive during Stormlight operations. "Helen, listen. Dr. Marcus Webb," Helen interrupted, 28 years old, researching defensive materials for soldier protection. "You killed him yesterday morning because he accessed Stormlight files. You don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly. You survived the crash, built a new identity, and spent 12 years eliminating anyone who got close to the truth about what really happened in Syria." Catherine's hand was still frozen halfway to the drawer. "You don't know what you're talking about. Operation Stormlight wasn't about rescuing Dr. Khalil," Helen continued. "It was about silencing him. He'd discovered something about the chemical weapons program, hadn't he? Something that implicated people in very high places." Catherine's face went pale. "Helen, when I refused to execute him, when I brought him out alive, I signed everyone's death warrant. The helicopter crash wasn't equipment failure. It was damage control. You think I wanted this?" Catherine's voice cracked slightly. "You think I chose to watch our entire team die?" Helen studied her former communications specialist. Kathy Morrison had been 26 during Stormlight, brilliant with electronics, loyal to the core. The woman sitting here now looked older than her 41 years, carrying weight that came from years of impossible choices. "What happened after the crash?" Helen asked. Catherine's hand slowly moved away from the drawer. "3 of us survived the initial impact. Rodriguez lasted 6 hours. Martinez made it 2 days. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. When I woke up, they gave me a choice, new identity, and a job keeping secrets, or an unmarked grave. And Dr. Khalil, dead within a month. Car accident in Damascus. Very convenient timing." Helen processed this information. The scope was bigger than she'd imagined. "How many others have you eliminated?" 17 over 12 years, Catherine said, matter-of-factly. "Journalists, researchers, former intelligence assets, anyone who got too close to the truth about what we were really doing in Syria, including Dr. Webb. Webb accessed files he shouldn't have, started asking questions about classified chemical research. He was 3 weeks away from connecting dots that would have exposed operations spanning 2 decades. Helen moved closer, her ceramic knife remaining concealed but ready. "And you decided he had to die. I decided 17 deaths were better than 17,000. Do you know what would happen if the Syrian chemical weapons program became public? If people learned how deeply we were involved, the wars it would start, the governments that would fall. So you became executioner for the greater good." Catherine laughed bitterly. "I became a janitor, just like you, cleaning up messes other people made, keeping the world safe from truths it can't handle." The parallel wasn't lost on Helen. They'd both become invisible, both chosen service over recognition, both carried the weight of decisions that haunted their sleep. The difference was what they decided to clean up. Dr. Webb had a girlfriend, Helen said quietly. Called him every night at 7. They were planning to get married next spring. "I know," Catherine replied. "I know everything about everyone I eliminate. It's the least I can do. Remember them as people, not just problems to solve. Then you understand why I'm here." Catherine nodded slowly. You're here because you think I've become the monster we were trained to fight. Haven't you? Maybe. Or maybe you have too, just in a different way. Hiding in plain sight, pretending the past doesn't matter, letting other people carry the load you walked away from. Helen felt the accusation hit home. For 12 years, she'd cleaned floors while others made the hard choices. Told herself she'd earned retirement through sacrifice. But retirement from duty wasn't the same as retirement from responsibility. So what now? Catherine asked. You kill me, justice is served, and tomorrow someone else takes over my work? The files still exist, Helen. The operations continue. My death changes nothing except making you feel better about Dr. Webb. Maybe that's enough. Is it? Or is there a better way? Helen hesitated. This wasn't how she'd envisioned this confrontation. Catherine was supposed to be a clear enemy, a corrupt agent who'd betrayed her oath. Instead, she'd found someone carrying an impossible burden with the same dedication Helen had once brought to her own missions. What are you suggesting? Catherine turned back to her laptop, fingers dancing across keys. I'm suggesting we finish what we started in Syria. The real mission, not the cover story. On screen appeared files Helen hadn't seen in 15 years. Operation Stormlight's true purpose, documenting a chemical weapons program that implicated senior officials in 3 different administrations. Dr. Khalil hadn't been a target. He'd been a whistleblower with evidence that could topple governments. The real mission. These files were supposed to die with us, Catherine continued. But I kept copies. Insurance. In case the people who ordered our deaths ever came for me directly. Why are you showing me this? Because Dr. Webb wasn't randomly accessing Stormlight files. He was recruited by the same people who want these secrets buried permanently. His research wasn't about defensive materials. It was about perfecting the delivery systems for the weapons we exposed 15 years ago. Helen stared at the screen, understanding dawning. He was bait. He was bait to draw me out, and killing him was supposed to look like elimination protocol. But the real target isn't me. It's these files. They needed me to access my archive, update security protocols, make the system vulnerable. You mean this apartment is surrounded? Has been for the past hour. They're waiting for me to complete the file transfer. Then they'll eliminate both of us and claim it was a terrorist attack. Helen's tactical awareness kicked in fully. She'd been so focused on confronting Catherine that she'd missed the real operation happening around them. Through the window, she could see glints of metal on surrounding rooftops, professional positions, coordinated overwatch. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes before they realize something's wrong and move to containment. Helen looked at the files on screen, then at Catherine. Her former teammate sat calmly, hands poised over the keyboard, waiting for Helen's decision. What's the play? Catherine smiled, the first genuine expression Helen had seen from her. You same as Syria. We get the package out alive, and we all go home. Except this time, home might be a federal prison. Or it might be a world where Dr. Webb's death actually meant something. Helen moved to the window, assessing their situation with professional detachment. 6 sniper positions visible, probably twice that many she couldn't see. Ground teams would be positioned at all exits. Classic containment operation. But whoever planned this had made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed Catherine was still the same communication specialist from 15 years ago. They hadn't accounted for her evolution into someone who eliminated threats professionally, and they certainly hadn't planned on Helen Reyes returning from the dead. Send the files, Helen said. All of them. Every major news outlet, every government watchdog, every journalist who's ever asked inconvenient questions. That will start a war, Helen. Not just investigations, actual wars. People will die. People are already dying. Dr. Webb died. because someone wanted these secrets protected. How many others have died for the same reason? Catherine's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Once I hit send, there's no taking it back. We become the most wanted people in America. We've been dead for 12 years anyway. Might as well make it count. Catherine began typing. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about Dr. Webb. He was a good kid who asked the wrong questions. And I'm sorry about the 17 others. They deserved better than being erased. Escape and upload. The files began uploading. Catherine's security system showed multiple networks accepting the data, redundant systems, ensuring the information would survive any attempt at suppression. Time to go, Helen said, watching red laser dots begin appearing on the apartment walls. They moved together through the apartment with synchronized precision, 15 years of separation collapsing into nothing. Catherine grabbed a go bag from her bedroom while Helen disabled the building's fire suppression system, creating the chaos they'd need for extraction. The first breach charge detonated just as they reached the stairwell. "Service elevator!" Catherine shouted over alarms and shouting voices. "Negative. They'll have it covered." "Laundry chute. Are you insane? We're 62 and 41 years old. Age before beauty," Helen replied, diving headfirst into the narrow chute. The ride down 7 floors in complete darkness, bouncing off metal walls and praying the landing wouldn't break anything vital. Helen hit the bottom hard, rolled, came up, ready to move. Catherine landed more gracefully, decades younger and still in decent field condition. "I can't believe that worked. Believe it when we're clear of the building." They moved through the basement service tunnels, Helen's maintenance knowledge proving invaluable for navigation. Behind them, the sound of systematic room clearing echoed down stairwells as tactical teams discovered empty apartments and growing frustration. 20 minutes later, they emerged 4 blocks away through a utility access hatch, looking like 2 service workers finishing a late shift. Helen's janitor uniform and Catherine's borrowed maintenance coveralls made them invisible in the pre-dawn streets. "Now what?" Catherine asked as they walked toward the metro station. "Now we disappear again and hope those files cause enough chaos to keep anyone from looking too hard for us. You realize we just became enemies of the state." Helen thought about Dr. Webb's young face, about the 17 people Catherine had eliminated, about the 12 teammates who died to protect secrets that should have been exposed years ago. "Good," she said simply. "Some secrets are worth being enemies for. Ghosts don't rest." 6 months later, Helen Reyes returned to work at a different government facility. Different city, different identity, same blue coveralls. She pushed her cleaning cart through corridors where young researchers worked late into the night, developing technologies that might save lives or end them. The Stormlight files had caused exactly the chaos Catherine predicted. 3 congressional investigations, 2 cabinet resignations, and a complete restructuring of the Chemical Weapons Oversight Program. Dr. Webb's death had become a symbol of governmental overreach. His research finally completed by scientists who understood its true purpose. Catherine Marshall had vanished completely after their escape, but Helen occasionally found coded messages in her apartment mail slot, updates on ongoing investigations, warnings about new threats, fragments of intelligence that suggested someone was still fighting the same war from a different position. Helen never responded to the messages. She'd said everything that needed saying in that Georgetown apartment. Some partnerships transcended words. Late one night, while cleaning a laboratory that researched protective equipment for soldiers, Helen found a sticky note on her cart. "Thank you for bringing the truth home, Dr. Webb's team." She folded the note carefully and placed it in her pocket, next to the photo she always carried. 12 faces from a helicopter that never made it out of Syria. Teammates who died keeping secrets and who'd finally been avenged by those secrets being revealed. The invisible janitor smiled and returned to her work. There were floors to clean, equipment to maintain, and a new generation of researchers to watch over. Some wars never ended. They just changed uniforms. The security cameras recorded Helen Reyes leaving the building at 6:15 a.m. just like every morning. What they couldn't record was the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd finally finished a mission that had taken 15 years to complete. Dr. Marcus Webb's girlfriend visited his grave every Sunday, bringing flowers and updates about the defensive technology program that now bore his name. She never knew that sometimes an elderly woman in a maintenance uniform stood at a respectful distance, making sure she was safe. Some promises were worth keeping, some truths were worth dying for, and some janitors cleaned up more than floors. They cleaned up history itself, one difficult truth at a time. Helen Reyes had broken her oath of silence, but she'd kept the more important oath. She'd sworn as a young soldier to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, no matter the cost. The best missions, she'd learned, were the ones no one ever heard about. The most important warriors were the ones who did their jobs and disappeared back into invisibility, leaving only clean floors and safer worlds behind. So the next time you pass someone cleaning the halls at 5 a.m., don't just look away. Some of them are cleaning more than dust. Some of them are cleaning up the mess the world pretends never happened. And if you're lucky, they're still on our side.